Test 1 to 3. Okay. Welcome everyone. I think most of you actually just came for the beers, so I'll try and be brief. I blame the Mac. First of all, I don't know if any of you remember him from the previous years, but a good friend of ours and a fellow organizer unfortunately passed away recently, so you'll see we've got photos for him around. It's a volunteer-run and non-profit organization, so all the hard work and time is freely given. So it's much worse when we lose someone like that, who used to do all the video and networking as well. I'm just going to do a quick intro on COVID kind of killed us for a bit, what it's going to look like in the future, and then Charles is going to tell us a little bit about HackSouth, and then we'll do a couple of lightning talks. So with COVID, we tried a couple of things, and sometimes we were also just lazy if we're honest about it, but a lot of the issues were around venues, amount of people. So only this year really anyone allowed us to do anything. So hopefully it means that from here on out it's going to be much easier to do anything. And I think like myself, the rest of you also got pretty tired of doing online events and another Zoom meeting, so we just didn't do any of that. And like I said, we needed to get ourselves organized. I did. Do you have one? We did that with the camera. And that's 50% of my success in my career as well, right? So what we're going to do for the future, while this holds, is we're going to collaborate a lot more with HackSouth and Xerox Coffee. I forgot to put that up, because we're all actually the same people, and generally the organizers are in between all of those groups. We're redoing the website. We're going to make it a little bit simpler and not have it WordPress, because we got a couple of comments about that in the past. And then we'll do a lot more of these smaller events every now and then. Give me a second.
We haven't told you. I run it, so I know it's not.
So I have to say that every time Mike's in one of my talks and he's given me a device, it always goes bad. So from now on, I blame it on Mike. And then obviously we're going to do the smaller events. We're going to try hackathons as well with Hack the Box and those kinds of events as well. And then December is definitely on, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. Rite of passage is also a little bit difficult in terms of travel. It was difficult to travel and also us sending someone away. So we're looking at other ways of maybe sponsoring students locally and doing other things. And then we also need more people to get involved as always. And then you're welcome to give us suggestions. So for December, I already spoke to the Cape Town Science Centre. So they've committed to the 3rd of December. We just have to figure out details with them, and hopefully in the next 2 weeks we'll do a call for papers and call for workshops. We'll send out sponsorship stuff. We've kind of just focused on getting this done, and then December is the next one. So the MTN Science Centre, I just got some photos of their website. If you haven't ever seen it, it's a space with a whole bunch of experiments for kids to learn about science. So I thought us hackers invading it would be an apt idea, and Grant actually had us there before, although we were drinking beer in a science lab.
And assembling badges.
That's a good point. Mike, are we doing a badge in December?
Yes.
I did bring some of the older badges if anyone wants to see. So Mike designs electronic badges every now and then for us. So if you want to help him for the next year, 2023, he's open. So there's a lot of science exhibits, and then they've got a really nice lecture hall as well. I mean, we tried dimension data as well in COVID times, but considering that they'd have to fumigate the whole place, it might make more sense for us to move somewhere else. And that's it. Charles. Yeah, to be clear, at PyCon, it should work. So just to be clear, in PyCon a couple of years ago, Mike used the SDR, right, to block the wireless signal to my mic mid-talk. So that's what I'm talking about.
Hi everyone. Always love the sound of my voice on a microphone. So I'm Charles Roth. I go by Angus Red in the community, and I just wanted to basically talk everyone through HackSouth, something we started a few years ago. Show of hands, who's on HackSouth? Yeah, that's good. Okay, here we go. Right, build it and they will come. So this is obviously what HackSouth is about, what got the idea started, and then where we are right now. Right, let me move around so I can read my own slides. Okay, so obviously, as I said, I'm Angus Red. HackSouth is we're about collaboration in cybersecurity. We want people that have an interest or a curiosity about cybersecurity, information security, and hacking in general. We have industry leaders. We have the CEOs and the CTOs from most of the consulting companies in South Africa. I have, because of the recruiting that I do in the United States, I do a lot of US government defense recruiting. So unfortunately, there's quite a few NSA people on there as well. And what it's about sharing inside advice and guidance with our peers, and a bit of tech support in between. Right, so where did we start? So Hacksaw started in 2019, following BSides Cape Town. Originally, it was on Slack, because we thought that, there's a speaker, there we go. We thought that it would be better so people could use it during the workday, because a lot of companies might block Discord. And then right before COVID kicked off, we decided to go on to Discord. I was a moderator on a community called the Many Hats Club, and I just thought it was the best place for it. We started off with like 15 people. Megalodon was one of them. And then we had a spam raid. People were posting Nazi propaganda on the main page, and we just launched like 2 days before. I was on the way to pick up my brother-in-law at the airport, and I just posted in May and I said, hey, who wants to be a moderator? So very good security and vetting. And Megalodon was one of the guys, and I promoted them, and then we kicked everyone off. I think Root also helped with that raid. So what is it born from? So we have lots of little communities in South Africa. We have BSides, HexCon, we have the dev side of things. We have all these different communities, and one of the biggest places where everyone was speaking on was ZA Tech, or Tech ZA on Slack. I'll be honest, I had my own personal greed involved in as well. I got kind of frustrated on ZA Tech, and I thought, let's have a space dedicated to cybersecurity and all the facets within it. And that's pretty much what born it. I wrote a blog here. Is that you, HackSouth? Is this me? Everyone says on the blogs that I write dissertations. Can't help that I write long. It always plans to be something short, and then it ends up being hella long. Right, so things to do. Sorry, this was just a joke. We changed our bot. We use Me6 to moderate the server and do different stuff. And you can customize it. So if I have a great idea, let's call it the SAPS. And then when people were joining the server, I was like, hey, the SAPS welcomes you to Hacksaw. So it didn't go down very well. We changed it to Duffy. Our mascot is a Dusty. Anyway, so let me see, where are we? Okay, so this is just showing you the different parts of HackSouth. So as you can see, if you're familiar with Discord, this will make sense. If not, I strongly suggest you check it out. So this is where we have our announcements, we have an events page, we have polls, we have different bits and bobs going on. So anything going on in the community, whether CTF's coming up, whether something's being awarded, we post an announcements and we tag everyone. We try to keep the posts as low as possible, but that's the main area for sort of up and coming news and events. Next we have Hangouts. So here we have a main channel, which is for main things, and random is for random things. We have a bot picking up from 2 of the Twitter pages that are related to InfoSec history. So, we get tweets coming every day, and they're like, this is the day Metasploit was built, or this day this happened. We also have voice text GIFs, and we have main VC. So a lot of people are like, how can I join voice chat? Well, anyone's allowed to join voice chat. We just have one rule. You just have to introduce yourself. And you say like, hey, my name is such and such, my ID number. It's just like, hey, I'm Angus Red, I'm into web apps. And then we go, okay, cool, and we give you a role, and you can lurk there for the rest of your life. And if people are on VC and they can't talk, but they want to chat, we have voice text for them. Right, so what we did is we changed recently that you get very minimal content on HackSouth, and then you have to opt into more. So we have roles in there's a role assignments channel, I think, up there somewhere. Right, you go there, reaction will click on the role, you get something. So for instance, what you see next, this is a friend zone. So here we've got money talk about finance and investments. We have music stuff. We've got no braai, if you're having like a braai, vegetarian, non-vegetarian. You post your pictures there, and we have lab porn as well. So people with good cable management, unlike me. And that's to get that, you just got to go to role assignment and you hit friend zone, and then you'll get that. Alright, so next, it'll be lucky if Spy Monkey was here. I don't think he was here today. But CTF zone is quite an important area for me, even though I'm not that involved in it. So every time a big sort of CTF comes up, we'll post about it, and if people want to get involved with it, whether it's their first CTF or they're an expert at it, just come join in. We set up different areas at the bottom here, where you'll get a role and you get into that group, and we share souls and stuff like that. We're not taking the souls, I think it happened recently, someone's taking the solves and doing it in their own CTF, we try to keep it, keep the etiquette of a CTF correct. So that's where we host all this stuff, and we've got a Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, we've got Trace Labs there, and we've got Vuln Hub and Proving Grounds as well. If you want to learn anything, the strong suggestion I can give is just take a stab and just try. So that's where our CTFs are. Next up is the Hacker Education Zone. Yeah. So there we have an area for students, university students. We have Paid Forward, which I'll talk about very briefly shortly. And we have resources. So anytime someone finds some free resource online, we drop it in there, have a look, take advantage. Right, a QR code is safe, but I've been warned not to use QR codes, so there it is. So if you're unfamiliar with Discord, I made another dissertation called the Skid Guide to Joining HackSouth. It's got the whole layout of the server there, how to join. For some reason, people still struggle to get in. Check here, sorry. You can see the stats there, top left. We have, 64 FNGs. We won't define what that means. But we have 44 people that have either accepted the code of conduct and haven't introduced themselves. So just do the process and you'll get in. Right. So I think that's the joining link. Right, so where are we now? We're all over social media because we're trying to attract more people to join us for no other reason than more people to learn from, more people to teach. So we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook recently, and we're on YouTube as well. We're 958 total members, of which 911 are humans, which are people that have vetted themselves and joined properly. And we have 330 people on CTF crew. We have about 30 people that do CTF, so we'd love to improve those numbers. Okay, where are we now? I tried to make a GIF and I realized it wasn't working. So this is the website. This is just basically the story of HackSouth and what we're doing. We have an events area you can synchronize with our Google Calendar, and we have a ton of blogs. I did have a GIF of blogs, but it didn't work. But there's a lot of blogs. There's blogs about my first red team engagement. I've done stuff about Trace Lab, which is open source intelligence. There's a lot of different information there. There it is. Yeah, there. We've got Paid Forward, we've got OCP guides, everything. What we like to do is more people to come blog. And you say, hey, you've got a bit of content or something you'd like to tell people about, come to us. We've got an area called Website Crew. Come in there, type up a blog, we'll help you put it up, and we'll get it on the website. Right, so projects. HackSouth hosts the Hack the Box Meetup in South Africa monthly. I think it's like the first Tuesday of every month. That's hosted by Spy Monkey and Toko. They do really, really well with it. It's actually become a bit of a gold standard for other Hack the Box meetups. We have No Child Left Behind, where we won 100,000 Rand. Most of that's still in the account while we figure out some stuff. It was basically a project done with GovX and KnowBe4 popcorn training up the road. And basically the people, Megalon was part of the team, and JFunction and Becca built an application for kids to learn about being safe online. So that was pretty cool. We got quoted in the Financial Mail very badly. Swag is still coming. We have Missing Children South Africa. We haven't worked on that a lot, but there's a lot of people that do open source intelligence, looking for missing kids and sexual predators and whatever around the world, and pass that information to law enforcement. So we partnered with Missing Children South Africa to help find people in South Africa. Paid Forward, I'm surprised more people didn't take advantage of this. We got given 10 PWK vouchers for offensive security. If you're not aware of what that is, it is probably the best offensive security certification you can do if you're starting in cyber. We've got 10 of them. We've given away 8 of them. We wanted to give it purely to South Africans, but we didn't have enough interest. So we've actually expanded to the rest of Africa. There's still 2 left. If people just want to apply, go for it. Mentorships and learnerships, as I mentioned, everyone's trying to help each other. We've hosted HexCon for the last 2 years. Jared's there, Jared's spoken there as well. We partnered with Trend Micro. They had like an internship training program. I can't remember the very, very long name for it. We partnered with them, partnering with BSides. We do CTFs. We have a whole jobs and careers area. If you have questions about careers, I'm a recruiter. People ask questions, I help answer, and we post jobs there as well. And also we're here for friendship. Oh, easy. There we go. Alright, a few accolades. There's our check. These are some of the people we got given PWK vouchers to. Is anyone here that won one of the PWK vouchers? Hey, you are Spectre Monkey. There we go. Congratulations, mate. They didn't win it, they rewarded it. They really did earn it. And we also are registered with CIPC as a non-profit or an NPC. We're trying to get our NPO number now, but it's quite a complex thing to get right. And there's our half-assed quotes in the financial mail about SARS. Oh, what can you do? Right, first thing you do is join. Second is tell people about it. Most people that join us find us through referrals. Some people find us online. Read our blogs, check it out. If you like it, share it with other people. It really helps get the word out there. Like, share, subscribe. And the last thing is get involved and get your roles. We've got some meme roles, just for the fun of it, like car and summoner of managers and trolley liquor, and all sorts of weird roles. We also have roles dedicated to your specialities and your strengths. So if someone's saying, hey, I have a problem with this or with that, we can tag the right people to get them the help they need. Alright, and that's it. Thank you. The mods and staff, that's the staff members, that's our Hall of Famers. Rooted is here. Where's Rooted? There at the bottom. We've got some cool people on here. Acid's on there, Andrew Mohawk, Rooted is here, Singe is here, Leon. Oh, and Elastic Ninja, where's he? Yo. Suddenly we're amongst gods here. And these are all honor members, people that have just put in the effort with HackSouth, engaged and contributed. And I believe that is it. Thank you. I'm not going to any questions. I mean, we can, but you can speak to me afterwards. And if you want to join, please come join us. Have fun. Next is, we're going to take about 5 minutes? Quick 5-minute drink break, Christy? Yeah. 5-minute drink. And then Jared, you can get set up, eh? Thank you, everyone.
I don't know what to do, so. So we're not going to be able to have a
No, like my screen goes to like sleep mode.
Oh no, it froze. It should be it froze. Oh, it must be a screensaver.
I can maybe just grab a seat so we can maybe start. Cool. So, hey everyone, it's great to be speaking in front of people again. So I'm going to present a quick lightning talk about the role of interceptor communications in the Russia-Ukraine invasion and how that has affected the war. So just a quick introduction about myself. I'm a cloud architect. I help organizations adopt AWS, but I also do quite a lot of research into things like surveillance, disinformation, privacy, etc., especially as they relate to foreign policy and national security interests. So to kind of jump straight into the presentation, the Russia-Ukraine relations really goes all the way back to the Soviet Union. I'm not going to go through the full history. I just want to highlight a few of the key moments during that. So in 2013, Ukraine wanted to join the European Union, and this led to some political battles in the country, which then sparked a whole bunch of protests and bloodshed, and effectively led to a change of leadership or political leadership. And as a result of that, Russia then annexed Crimea, and there's been tensions ever since. In September of last year, troops started building up by the Ukrainian border. And by November of last year, we know from satellite images that over 100,000 troops were actually stationed around the Ukrainian border. And Russia was claiming that these were, military activities. However, by end of November, it was very clear that this was actually something different. And in December, Vladimir Putin demanded that Ukraine not only be barred from joining NATO, but that NATO should pull out from Eastern Europe. And sensing that invasion would be likely, the US and other NATO countries started sending weapons into Ukraine, including military vehicles, as well as weapons and ammunition, including the Javelin missiles, which are anti-tank missiles that are very effective against Russian armor. And NATO also stepped up their surveillance activities both in Ukraine and the surrounding borders. And then, as most of us are aware, on the 24th of February, Russia invaded Ukraine in what they claimed was a special military operation. And during this, we really started to see the Russian doctrine take place. So the Russian doctrine is, how they operate in warfare. So the Russian military is organized into 5 different groups, which is the military operations, aerospace operations, oceanic operations, nuclear forces, as well as a group that targets critical activities. And what they also do during this is they are known to use electronic and information warfare as part of that doctrine, and we saw that during the invasion. So one of the very first steps was to say, okay, let's use information warfare to create disinformation to justify the war, and when kinetic activity starts, let's go after the command and control infrastructure of the enemy, which will lead to disorganization. And with this in mind, a lot of people thought that a large-scale cyber war would actually break out because Russia has a lot of cyber capability. I personally thought that we were going to see like a NotPetya 2.0 happening. Thankfully, that didn't happen. There was a wiper malware that was discovered in Ukraine that started spreading. However, its impact was fairly limited. However, we did see an attack on the BSides KSAT satellite network, which was done by Russian actors. So access was gained through a misconfigured VPN at a provider network, and through that Russian actors were able to deploy a wiper malware that wiped out the configuration files that these devices used to connect to the network. And at the same time, a large-scale DDoS attack was launched against Viasat to kind of distract the security team. The impact of this is fairly significant, so about 30,000 SATCOM terminals went offline, including 5,800 wind turbines in Germany because they used the SATCOM network for monitoring and other operational activities. It wasn't initially clear why Russia went after this network, but it is believed that the Ukrainian military uses the Viasat network. But I think the actual target of this was the Turkish-made TB2 drone, which has a lot of surveillance capabilities. It can also fire munitions at targets. And we actually recently, like 2 days ago, the Ukrainian military actually created a song praising this drone and its capabilities. So I think this was really the target that Russia was going for. But one of the questions that we effectively need to ask ourselves is, does this activity that we've seen constitute cyber warfare? So we've seen a lot of state-sponsored groups, both on Russia and the Ukraine side, attacking each other's infrastructure and websites, etc. There's been calls by Ukraine that all people that support Ukraine should go attack Russian infrastructure. In this table here, you can see all the groups and which side they are taking. But in my opinion, this is like textbook hacktivism. It's not actually cyber warfare. However, you could argue that when you have this kind of activity with kinetic activity, that constitutes cyber warfare. I know there are varying opinions on this, but that's my opinion. And the reason why I have that opinion is because I think we need to be very careful when we use the term cyber warfare, because if you use it too frequently, people become desensitized to it. So if you, for example, go around and say, you know, everything is fascism, when real fascism actually happens, it's like, well, people, you know, it's a loaded term and people are desensitized to it. And if we look at things like electricity generation, water treatment, and telecommunications infrastructure, those things have been disrupted, but not by cyber attacks, but rather by kinetic activities that involve conventional weapons. So moving on to probably one of the most interesting things for me about the war that has occurred is the fact that Russia has been found to be using insecure communication. So they're using cheap Chinese radios that are dual band receivers that operate on the VHF and UHF frequencies. And because it's not encrypted, if you have that signal information, you can easily go listen to what's actually going on those frequencies. Which a lot of people are doing, and a lot of intelligence has been gathered as a result of that. So there's 4 groups operating inside of Ukraine that are actively listening into these communications and then providing that to the Ukrainian military, and that has had a real impact in the way the war has played out. So with that information, the Ukrainian military can make really important strategic and tactical decisions about where and basically their role in the war. And as a result, Russia has not been able to get close to Kyiv as a result of this intelligence. What we've also seen from transcribed intercepts, you can really see the disorganization of in the Russian military. And there's also been a lot of people taunting and trolling the Russian groups. So, for example, when they ask for supplies, they'll get the Dixie whistle basically back at them on the radio. And then there's also activist groups that will actually answer and taunt them. For example, in this case, somebody's asking for a reroute, and the jammer replies that they should go home. It's better to be a deserter than fertilizer. Groups have also been jamming the radio frequencies, so they basically create a whole bunch of high-pitched noises that when you put this through a spectrograph, it creates images of pigs, troll faces, and Among Us characters. Russia tried to stop this activity by spreading false frequency information on social media, but that was very quickly shut down as being fake. And this has been very interesting because a lot of intelligence and military analysts are very surprised that Russia has been using insecure frequencies because they actually do have secure radios. They use the ASAR frequency hopping radios. However, a lot of corruption actually took place during the procurement of these radios, and the contract was given to a manufacturer in China, the lowest bidder, and the quality is not that great because a lot of these radios have been made with faulty parts. But I think the most interesting reason, or the real reason why we haven't seen a lot of these radios being used, is because because Russia sent its military to the border in a training exercise, not enough key material was actually pulled down in order to support these radios in the battlefield. And these radios form part of a larger system. This is the rack-mounted unit, and then there's also various relay and rebroadcasting facilities. Unfortunately, that keeps happening. And then also they have equipment that does that provides digital trunk lines for communications. And these vehicles that you see on this slide not only facilitates communications, but they also do radio and GPS jamming. So these vehicles are part of Russia's electronic warfare unit, and because of the jamming that they are doing, there's a lot of companies that have satellites that can detect GPS jamming when it's going on, because it's quite important for aviation and other activities. When you paint that on a map, you can actually see it correlates really well with Russian troop movements as well, which is quite interesting. To shut down disinformation, the Ukrainian military has actually seized over 10,000 SIM cards that were being used by 5 Russian bot farms to spread disinformation on social media, which I thought was quite interesting. However, if we look on the Ukrainian side, so what's the Ukrainian military doing? They mostly use Motorola. However, they do have other radio systems that have been provided by various funding. So, for example, they have the L3 Harris system that was provided by US funding, and they use a bunch of different models. So they have things like soldiers. So soldiers, specialists, and commanders use different models due to the number of frequencies that they need to be on. Again, there is some variance with that. However, these radios actually, they use DMR, so they are actually secure, and they use RC4 for encryption. However, RC4 is not great because it's vulnerable to bit flipping attacks, and because the keys are relatively short, they can easily be broken with a lot of modern computers. However, it's not necessarily always possible to do this on the battlefield. And then the audio quality of these radios also is fairly limited because the key ID algorithm and IV are actually transmitted as part of the broadcast, which uses some of the bandwidth that's available. In terms of how President Zelensky actually communicates, he uses 3 phones. So the one on the right is a very old phone that has direct links to other government departments, which is not secure. The phone to the left of that at the back is a Soviet-style phone, which is it operates on a peer-to-peer network. So you'll notice that it doesn't have a keypad. So you pick up the phone and then the other side rings. It's not encrypted, but it is run on an encrypted network by a department in the Ukrainian government. And you'll see Russia uses the same set of phones. This photo was taken in 2012. And then when President Zelensky actually talks to foreign leaders, he generally uses a commercial voice phone like the Avaya B419. And then when he talks to the President of the United States, he generally uses a Cisco unified phone in this example. And you can see that this phone is likely connected to the US Defense Red Switch network, which is obviously a secure, top secret level kind of network. And this is probably relayed through one of the embassies either in Ukraine or in the surrounding area. And this has played a really important role in allowing President Zelensky to communicate to foreign leaders, to address the US Congress and Parliament of both Britain and the EU as well as to address the nation, which has had a very high impact on morale inside the country. Obviously, keeping telecommunications infrastructure up and running is a very hard challenge, especially inside of a war zone. And they've actually managed to keep 80% of their telecommunications infrastructure up and running. And they've done this, through fiber technicians. This, for me, is probably one of the most striking images of the war, where you have fiber technicians sitting on the front lines in a war zone, repairing fiber infrastructure. It's just like, wow. And this has really allowed, those communications, but also for us to actually see what's going on. This is one of the first wars where we can actually see what's going on a day-to-day basis. We've seen Ukrainian citizens reporting Russian troop movement, and we've also seen some funny things like Ukrainian farmers capturing tanks. I do want to warn you, the next two slides are a little bit gory, but we've also seen war crimes as well. So this is Russian armor attacking a civilian car that's unprovoked. So this is actually the definition of a war crime. We've also seen what's happened in Bucha, where hundreds of people have been killed, a lot of them in execution style with their hands tied behind their backs. And then there's a number of Telegram channels as well that have been set up to show everybody that has perished in the war. If you want to go look for yourself on Telegram, if you search RF200_now is the main channel, but there's a few other derivatives as well. Just be warned, those images are really gory. And I think, it's really hard to kind of show the scale of the war and, the human suffering, which is never a good thing. But I really hope that this comes to an end soon, whenever that may be. And with that, that's the end of my presentation. And thanks. Any questions or comments? No? Awesome.
So if you look at the radios and also at what's happening with the tanks and armored columns, don't you think just in general they're unprepared? It's not necessarily that they went for exercises, but that there's been a rot for a while with the corruption, that what you see on paper when they compare armies, once the reality is very different. I mean, you look at the truck tires, for instance, that's like just a lack of discipline and corruption.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also, a lot of them surrender because, when they, especially in the first days of the war, when they went over the border, they're like, what are we doing in Ukraine? And then immediately surrendered after that. So I think there's been a lot of misinformation and false narratives to kind of justify the war, which is just like, just sickening, I guess.
And do you think the special forces or the 7-tier teams are any better? Do they have encrypted communications?
I don't know. Cool. Yeah.
What kind of activity are we seeing from civilian activist groups attacking the Russian infrastructure?
So there's a lot of DDoS attacks going on. There's also, besides the DDoS attacks, I haven't seen anything more specific than that. To be fair, yeah. There has been doxing though, so when these groups form, there's been doxing going on, exposing members of each of the groups. But other than that, I haven't seen anything specific. Cool. Thanks.
Coming alright?
So if I go here,
You might just want to give them the other Wi-Fi as well. Microphone's behind the laptop.
Hey folks. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about OWASP today. They mentioned earlier how there are a number of groups in South Africa that are all kind of the same group of people. We do a bunch of the same sort of things. OWASP is one of them. OWASP Cape Town will still be run by, I hope, Christo at some point again. But OWASP is a global foundation and we do a bunch of things. And I'd like to just briefly run through some of those things with you. So this presentation is called RUBFG. What do I mean by that? Well, firstly, who I am. There's a lot of stuff on the slide. I've been involved in a bunch of things in the community. The primary thing to take away from is probably my handle, Rooted. You'll find me on HackSouth. You'll find me on Twitter. Reach out to me if you have questions. Commercial side, I work for a company called Secure Delivery. I have a slide like this in every presentation I do because they're the reason I get to do these kind of presentations. So I'm very fortunate to do that. We do a lot of the stuff that I'm about to show you commercially, usually overseas, but we obviously do work with a bunch of people, good people here in Cape Town. OWASP. As a foundation, there are two different parts, two big pieces that make up what the foundation is. The first is that OWASP is all about the projects. So we're a project organization, 150 plus open source projects, ranging from the OWASP top 10s, yes, there's more than one, there's actually a lot now, all the way through to things like OWASP ZAP, which I hope some of you guys are familiar with, or OWASP SAM. So whether it's a list of things that you should be doing the right way, or whether it's some software that you can use to actually tap tools, tap things, or whether it's the way that you should be working as a dev team, which is what SAM is about. The other side of the foundation is a community thing. There should be a OWASP chapter in every city that has tech. There is one in Johannesburg, there was and will be again one here in Cape Town. COVID has unfortunately been very complicated for a lot of us. But there is one in almost every major city around the world. So, RUBFG. The hell was I talking about? Well, it's red unless blue finds green. So this is going to be a talk that I do a lot of coloring. We'll talk about different types of information security. But let's start with who this is all about. So who are Red? Well, they're the rock stars, right? They're the guys that we all think about when we think about hacking. They're the guys who are breaking stuff. You know, the infosec rock stars who do the baddest things. And there are a lot of them here in South Africa. In fact, there's probably a lot of you guys in this room who do this for a living. At OWASP, we call these particular individuals the breakers, right? So they're the breakers in our team. And I'm using Matilda here because of her way of approaching the world. I think that kind of, you'll notice that there's a lot of BFG style memory in here. But I think Matilda kind of represents a pretty good example of what the Red Team is about. The way they think, what they try and do. I guess it just comes back on its own. So in our modern fairy tale, it's their job to break things, to break in, to breach the walls, to see where things can get broken. So what about Blue Team? Well, Blue Team is where a lot of us sit inside information security. We're the ones who defend the castles. We're the ones who are trying to figure out how we can make things safer. OWASP, these people are called defenders. So you've got the breakers, you've got the defenders. And I've used, well, somebody who looks a little bit like me. Because this is what I've done most of my life. I've been involved in this area of security. And it's complicated. It is really, really, really the hardest part of the world. Primarily what this is about. But who's Green Team? Well, Green Team are the developer rock stars, the guys who are building things. And unusually in BSides around the world, there are a lot of devs here today. There are a lot of developers who are involved in the security community in Cape Town, which is great. It's unfortunately not the case in most of the world. Well, we call the Green Team the builders, and well, I need something green, so I'm going to go with the first part. So why do I say red? Why do I say red unless blue finds green? Why do I think that red team is going to win? Well, red have the best stuff. And this is a bit of a plug to show you a couple of the projects that OWASP has. They have the Z-Attack proxy, OWASP Zap. If you haven't used it yet, please grab a copy of it, play with it. It's phenomenal. They have OWASP Mass. There's the Project Mass page. Take a look at it. It's a really good tool, really useful tool. It's the everything is connected tool that OWASP has. We have the security testing guides, both web and the mobile ones. If you're doing testing in the mobile space, use those guides. They're going to help you get through it. And if the guides don't do everything that you do, feel free to contribute back to them. The thing is, Red always win. They have all the expensive tools. They have all the fun and all the budget they could possibly want. Right? They don't need the most expensive tools though, because the cost to defend far exceed the cost to attack. And Red only has to win once in order to win completely. Give me just a second. Find mine. So down here at the bottom, I don't know if you can actually see it. This is actually an article by Dr. Wendy Ng. In 2017, she highlights these 2 points around attackers being able to win all the time. The cost to defend back then was about $1.2 billion spent versus the 395 billion, 1.2 billion to attack against the 395 billion to defend. This is how much we're spending on defense of our systems. I recently did a talk with Nina Ali, who's the DEF CON Biohack Village. Recently, it's now a year ago or more. Talking about the ever-growing complexities in hospitals. Because hospitals, the infrastructure in hospitals, there's a lot of pieces that are just attached to their networks. And then they allow guests to come in and join those guest networks, and they're not always as segregated from the same network that the CAT scan machine is connected to, which is also transmitting patient data, and where the nurses are logging what medications you're getting. Anyway, in 2019, Sammy Kamkar, yes, Sammy's my hero, said this at DTXEU. And he's right. Blue only has to win. Blue has to win all the time in order for them to win at all. Red only has to win once. So red only needs one win. Donnie Went at the CSIAC, yes, reiterated this with this comment. Along with the total cost aspects of defending, attackers need to exploit a single vulnerability. They really only need just one. Barcelona, who switched from red to blue fairly recently, talked about how blue team is being handcuffed by having no real insights into the red team's playbook. Blue team don't talk to red team when they should. Bas very clearly underlines that it's not a binary exercise, right? It's not a simple yes or no. Exploitable itself depends on several factors. Exploitability is a weird term. It sounds like an objective valuation, right? So how exploitable something is tied to how much time, how much skill, how much money, or how much will that an attacker has who's going to throw the ball. And they only need a little bit to get somewhere. What about blue team? Well, blue team have cool stuff too. Like this is no talk. There's some OWASP cool things. The OWASP attack surface detector, Threat Dragon. If you're doing threat modeling, Threat Dragon is a great tool to do that with. The attack surface detector is a command line tool that can be used for Zap or Burp as a plugin for those two tools. Used to uncover otherwise unreachable components on your systems. OS Top 10, which, there's a couple I mentioned there, the mobile one, the Docker one, privacy one. There's now a serverless one that's being put together. It's the top 10 things developers should know about. And there are different spaces they should be concerned with. But seriously, Blue can afford the good stuff. Like all the stuff on the previous page, because it's OWASP, it's free, but Blue can afford the good stuff. IT spending for 2019 was $106 billion globally. That's about 6% of the entire IT budget. Software publishers, internet services had about 8.7%. Government services spent about 6.7%. So it depends on what sector you're in. Nearly $1,200 per employee spent on IT security. Software publishing service, a little higher than that. But this is how it gets broken down. So what did they spend it on? Well, the spend is pretty interesting because they went through operational security, which is about half of it, and that covers things like network security, that covers things like identity and access management, privileged access management, endpoint security, things running on laptops. Vulnerability management, the next biggest chunk of the pie, which is vulnerability assessments, so pen tests. So it isn't really blue team spend anymore, it's kind of red team at that point. Then they spent 16% on governance, risk and compliance, and 14% on application security. But why is Blue playing catch up? Well, Blue has the wrong focus. We're spending most of our spend, 72.9% of exploitable things actually happen in implementation. This is the NIST study done on all CVEs over an 8-year period. Hopefully they'll be doing a new one because this data is now fairly old, it's 2016. But in 2016, almost 73% of all vulnerabilities were code. We're spending all our time, the 50% of our budget is in the configuration side of things, that tiny little portion down there. 96% of changes flow straight into production. This is a large bank that I've done some work with. Because there's not enough people in the Blue team to review application security changes, no one's reviewing those application security changes. This is a scary amount of change happening, that nobody's even looking at. 4% of the people did actually self-select and say, yes, we'll go through that process. And then they spent 6 to 8 weeks in hell waiting for something to happen. The central security team is completely swamped. There's no way for them to do anything. Though there are many studies on Blue getting involved far too late, right? You've seen this. You've seen the shift left concept. You know that as things get further to the right, we end up with much more expensive, much more harder to fix. Dollars go up as we get closer to the production side of things. So Blue needs to be involved way early in the process than they actually are. So how does Blue actually catch up? What can they do? Well, we start with remembering our purpose. The giant in the story is the organization itself. We're all here for that, right? If the company isn't making money, then nobody's doing what they need to do. Nobody's able to continue doing their jobs. We don't deliver, we have no customers, we have no money, nobody gets paid. We know that Blue is better when it works with Red, and we've all heard of purple teaming. So when Blue does actually take a look at Red's playbook, and when Red does help Blue understand the attacker mentality, we definitely get a far more efficient way of working. But does purple actually solve all the problems? Well, a little bit more of a plug for more OWASP tools. Purple has some cool stuff too. Secure flag. If you're an OWASP member and you have access to the OWASP applications, because you've got an OWASP or email address, go check out Secure Flag. Secure Flag is a commercial platform. There is the project itself is the actual platform without any of the exercises in it. That is open source. But Secure Flag as a commercial platform provides a bunch of exercises where you can actually run through, this is a vulnerable piece of code, let's break it down, let's see what's necessary in order to, sorry, my laptop wants to do updates. But if you have an OWASP account, go check out Secure Flag. If you do not have an OWASP account yet, why? So Secure Flag's great. GShop is fantastic. If you've never played with GShop, it's a deliberately vulnerable modern web application. Take it, pull it apart. There are a bunch of CTFs built around GShop. Feel free to make use of them. And they've got some really fantastic testimonials, which I don't think you can actually see down there. Security Shepherd is also like a training ground. Dependency check. If you use GitHub and you're using the GitHub dependency verification, you're using dependency check. There are better tools, commercially available tools, that do better in-depth reviews of is this piece of code actually ever called in your application. But at least start with the basics, and they're free, and it's in GitHub and in GitLab, so make use of them. So we have red and blue combined now. But it doesn't really solve our problems, because red and blue are outnumbered. This is the picture of the world as it is. Purple team, purple down there in the bottom, a tiny little sliver that is the red and blue team combined, and that is the world of people building code. 100 to 1. There are on average 100 developers for every security person. And that's not specific application security, that's just security generally. So we have to add green, right? So red, purple, purple and green, this is white. Notice my very happy coincidence that creates a space for all the white hats, right? White hat hackers. We add green by performing security in all areas of the delivery process, right? Through the life cycle of developing and running a service. And we make security a question of software quality again. This is the ISO 25010 software quality assurance model. I've highlighted very nicely there where security sits in that model. You'll notice that if you've done any work with ISO models, they're generally left to right most important. So functional suitability of software is obviously key. If it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, nobody's going to use it. And then as you move further to the right, it becomes less and less important. So eventually you get to things like portability, where, okay, this will run on AWS and on Azure, and nobody cares, because you're never going to move it from one to the other, right? Security, you'll notice, is very carefully put on that nice boundary between things that people do care about and spend money on, and the things that they don't care about and don't spend money on. SRE sitting right there where reliability is, just to the left of security. We have tools, so many great tools. We build the standards. So there's 150 projects covering all the tools that we've talked about and many, many, many more. The standards for software security, things like SAM, ASVS, literally the way that you build software and what that software looks like when it's finished, when you finish building it. So measuring quality, like there are 200 chapters, maybe slightly less now after the pandemic because some chapters have gone into hiatus. Thousands of members worldwide, most of whom are green team, very willing to join with red and blue to move things forward. How can you help? Well, get involved. Start with projects. And as I said, there's projects that cover everything. If you write code, there are lots of projects that we can use your help in writing some code. Even if it's just running some tests, because that's something we never get around to doing. If you don't write code, that doesn't matter. There is other things that you do. There are things that you know that you can help contribute back to. There are lots of projects that are involved with how things get done. There are lots of projects that talk about blog articles, community articles around specific types of vulnerabilities. Please get involved. Get involved with your local chapter. Keep pushing Christo to get the Cape Town chapter up and running. And then come and meet up with them. Quite often OWASP does this kind of style meetups where there's a couple of presentations, but it's mostly a little bit social, and that they're good. If it's just social, that's fine too. But get involved with your community. Make sure that you go to OX Coffee when it starts running again. Once conferences happen in real life, try and get out to one of them. Hopefully BSides will be happening in December. If the world stays the way it is now, BSides will be happening. And you'll be amazed by how much OWASP events look like BSides events. Mostly because the BSides events are generally run by the people who are running the OWASP events. Join up. If you're not a member yet, become one. There are special pricings for developing nations. South Africa qualifies. So your membership will cost you $20 a year, as opposed to the $50 it costs in the United States. With that, you get a Gmail account with an OWASP email address, and you get a bunch of other access to other tools, like Secure Flag and other things as well. Some free training. And you always get discounts, the equivalent in your annual cost to, so if you spend $20 on your membership, you get a $20 discount on whatever conferences you go to. And you get that for every conference you go to. So if you manage to do more, we will be meeting up in San Francisco. That'll be the first in-person global conference for OWASP for maybe 3 years. If you can make it to San Francisco, I'd love to see you guys there. Yeah. The problem is that there are 40 million developers worldwide. 40 million. And I say we have thousands of members. I should be able to say we have millions of members. Because every dev can use the tools that OWASP has, and every dev should want to make use of the things that are given to OWASP members. So please do, get involved with becoming involved. That's it. That's me. If you have any questions, again, you can find me in either of those places, but at REWTD is probably the easiest way to find me. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Sorry? What beard oil do I use? I've actually switched to a balm. It works much better. Water's just too damn hard in the UK. Yeah. That's right.
What's the type of training or something that we can attend? Send out that one too?
Yes, so there is, so OWASP trainings in person tend to happen with the OWASP conferences, but there are lots of online training sessions that are currently happening. There are training sessions with online conferences as part of, like, every month this year, you'll find something from access to. Jim Manico is doing a bunch of trainings this year, and probably, and I'm now going to say this in the live stream when I haven't actually cleared it with my business partners yet, but probably Security Delivery will be giving some free OWASP training with threat modeling. One of my key passions you saw getting involved earlier in the process is threat modeling. Threat modeling by security people is fine, but they tend to do it very late, and they don't tend to do it on the thing that actually gets built. Or they do it on the thing that's already built and it's too late to threat model. So we do a lot of threat modeling using Cornucopia, which is a card game, which devs play as part of, like you do planning poker as part of story scrubbing. You can use these cards to come up with threats around those things you do. But yeah, there'll be tons of training. And again, OWASP membership gets you discounts. Bear in mind, everything at OWASP is freely available, right? You can gain access to all the tools. You don't need to be a member to use any of the projects. You don't even need to be a member to contribute to projects. But it does give you some additional benefits and helps us do what we do, because we are a not-for-profit organization. Cool. Thank you very much.
Just another 10-minute break, and there might be more food coming, right? Okay, yeah. So grab a drink, eat something, and then we'll do a last one, so be social.
considering you get an OWASP
It's just me. I don't know why I can't.
second delay apparently.